Hello and welcome to a very special episode of Creative Recharge, where we talk about toxic characters. Oh, doesn't everybody look for this? Okay, here, listen, this is my pitch. But what if you need a villain? This is a great way to have a villain who's not just that you're not villainizing due to disability or queer status or being a person of color. No, they're villainized because they have dysfunctional traits that make them a problem for society, as well as frankly themselves and all their family and friends. Yay! Doesn't everybody want that? Sure, sure you do. You absolutely do. That is why you're watching this, because you're curious at the very least. Also, gender studies for neurodivergent people. Who doesn't love that? Right? Right, because you can't get that in college. I'm just going to tell you now. So you don't have to pay for college. You can just watch us for free. And today, you know him. I love him. He's my brother and technical producer. This guy.
Howdy, howdy. Welcome home.
Tom wants to try something new where we're both in the living room. Here with us. I am on my laptop. However, it's not my laptop's original hard drive. All the settings are wrong. I love you, Tom. So, if you have feedback for us, like maybe the audio doesn't sound as good or whatever, please let us know. But also, please know we will not be able to fix it today. We will try. We have tried for the past hour. It is what it is. But we will keep trying to fix it for the next week. Hopefully, we will find whatever secret setting is causing the audio to not sound that great. Also, now you know what the living room looks like. Hello, Maggie. Maggie is dealing with apparently lots of wind. I'm so sorry. Love to have you on for you to explain your point of view. But I understand the wind's not our friend today. Hello, Megan. It's like I just saw you. It says the intro always reminds her of seeing Carmen San Diego for some reason.
You know, that little dun, 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 dun.
Where in the world is Carmen San Diego? Yes, are you of a certain age? Do you remember the Carmen San Diego? And it's time to take your ibuprofen. I help myself.
I know, it's very hard.
I will always take the elder millennial joke.
So where should
He keeps looking directly at me, and y'all don't know. Just like he's literally eye contact here.
I'm side-eyeing Glory.
He is very much side-eyeing.
But yeah, like, where should we start with? Oh god, I start reminiscing because it's hard to forget about those dossiers. I mean, it took us a while to realize that it was a password function, checking the dictionary that was supposed to be included that we didn't have. We still played the game, we still beat it. That's how I learned what spelunking was. Which still sounds very naughty to me.
Yes, it's me, don't worry, Tom. Very trying to get into my YouTube account, and it's like, we don't believe you're who you say you are.
Lies. It's all lies.
That's YouTube. I'm already live, and they're like, we're not convinced.
Obviously, you're off doing something else, so that can't be you. So how should we talk about toxic femininity? What makes it toxic?
Oh, we're just going to jump in. Here, I wanted to ask about weather, but okay. Tell me how your weather is in the chat.
We already know Maggie's.
Windy?
Yeah.
We are 78 and very rainy. So if you hear thunder, that's us. So, what is toxic about femininity?
Actually, really, when does femininity go toxic?
When does femininity become toxic? Honestly, at the point it becomes dysfunctional. The point that it impedes a person's ability to function freely in society is where it becomes truly toxic. Like you can make arguments that, oh, there's like the hintings of it in like before it becomes dysfunctional, and I would probably agree with you. But the part where it's toxic, it is poisonous, both to that person as well as to those they are surrounded by, is in dysfunctionality. And that is where the concern is. So you could take any aspect of femininity and take it too far. So, for instance, things people might be familiar with are the damsel in distress. Look, all of us from time to time have been in distress and needed someone else's help. Maybe just because we were overwhelmed, maybe because we did not have the skills necessary to get us out of that problem, such as not everybody knows how to change a flat tire or how to like how to know when it's safe to add more water to an overheating radiator. I mean, that is a serious concern, right? You don't want to burn yourself.
Or, I wasn't thinking about it, but from last week, I guess, discussion in Tu Wong Fu, Chi Chi, who is only recently living as a woman, like 24/7, not understanding when situations are safe and when they are not safe
Yes.
for her. And then by doing that, puts other people in danger as well. Other people then have to come in and rescue Chi Chi. So again, yeah, that also as well can be toxic of that dangerous level of ignorance versus that dangerous level of seeming entitlement of where you are the moralistic person in this surrounding. So whatever you do is going to be the correct way to do it, even if it harms others. It's sort of where we came in on a Working Girl, where Sigourney Weaver's character is someone who's always had the best of everything, and then proceeds to take our main character's ideas and portray them as her own. And we see how she then uses her defense of, "But I'm a woman, I wouldn't do that," as a way of excusing her behavior when she knew.
She was actually doing that.
And she was using it to gain power. Like that was the toxic part of
Where she was using this feminine ideal as a shield.
Yes.
What, little old me? I'm far too innocent and sweet. I would never do that. Don't you believe me? I'm a woman. I don't have ulterior motives. I have that part of using it as a shield.
Also, that part, kind of early on of her using the same line repeatedly. Like we see it actually is used repeatedly and has a what do you call it? A manipulative tactic
Mm-hmm.
of to many of the different women she's known saying, oh, how we're sisters. But trust me, since we're sisters, we're in this together. Even though what immediately follows is her being manipulative for her own gain. So, like we see that with, her talking with the main character Melanie Griffith, and the whole, if you have any ideas, bring them to me. And then we also see it later on when we hear her recording and talking to herself that Melanie Griffith, listens to, using the same line and tactic on her sorority sisters to get them to donate to the university. Learn that this is just an easy way to get people to trust you and do whatever you want, and to not ask too many questions. And man, it's just for her gain, and that's the part where it makes it dysfunctional. Is it's not for the group good; it's just for her personal good, because it's for her personal project at the university. It's not for just remember to donate to the university. No, it's her stuff, so she gets the credit for it, as well as the letter she writes of Melanie Griffith's idea to go take to others that is written as her idea only.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, that's where it becomes toxic, and that's where toxic feminine traits are great in to create a villain, because we can simultaneously see they are a villain, and we kind of understand their perspective. So it's not a ship too far. It's not unbelievable that someone would act this way.
Mm-hmm.
Which is again one of the things you're always trying to be careful of and mindful of when you're writing your fiction. Is you want people to stay in that suspension of disbelief. Of yeah, people would totally act this way. Versus the joke about who joins a group called the League of Supervillains or the League of Evil People. Like no one sees themselves as evil; they see themselves as justified in their behavior for the way they have to deal with society. No one truly sees themselves as a villain unless they haven't been entirely broken and they know they're a villain for that society and they want that society entirely destroyed. Yeah.
But as long as they live within that society, then they definitely don't want to be seen as a villain. That would be counter to their ultimate goals to be lauded or at least protected by their own society.
Versus we're shown repeatedly that Sigourney Weaver's character is just after power and staying comfortable. She wants to maintain a certain lifestyle and she really doesn't care who she has to step on. In some ways, it is sort of a reframing of Wall Street.
Mm-hmm.
Except we are seeing it from the other side of the people she is affecting and how, because of her behaviors, they don't feel bad then doing things behind her back because she's already stabbed them. And how she ultimately loses because of her, distrustful behavior. Well, I think they weren't sure if the audience would notice, so that's why they had to add in these scenes where she is having literal parties in her
hospital room.
Yeah, in her hospital
in
room.
her private hospital room.
Yes, where the nurse is, painting her nails, and they have, just an actual little party going on with streamers and everything.
Balloons.
The doctors are signing her cast.
What a party girl.
Yeah, we wanted to bring up of there's nothing that we can't write about. But knowing how to use it to tell a good story that people want to read and people enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
People want to read about justice. people want to believe that there can be a better world. And while, yes, we see constantly how justice only exists inside games, that's why there are commissioners for professional games to create rules to make it more fair. We also like that in our fiction, to know that good behavior is rewarded. I mean, that's what we were grown up, being taught. We want to keep seeing that because it's not always easy being a compassionate, kind person. So, for at least our fiction to reinforce, no, good does come of this, and often it does. People want to work with good people.
Mm-hmm.
They want to work with people they can trust. They do not care to work with people who are duplicitous, but you never know what else they're going to do.
Oh yeah, the person who will stab someone else in the back will stab you in the back later.
Yes. Hence, the secret, it sounds like women are just really finally learning in the last decade of if he's cheating on someone to be with you, he will later cheat on you to be with someone else. I'm like, no, don't even date that kind of person. Do not go out with someone like that. But yeah, I mean, on the other hand, I also have to admit, when we were watching these movies, it did actually take me a while to figure out where was the toxic traits. For me, at least, it was not obvious. And not saying, oh, doesn't that gender always act that way? But just seeing where it goes from functional to dysfunctional. Like, these were decent. I mean, since it's us, yes, we definitely still have critiques about how to make these movies better. It's just part of our nature. But they were decently well done and edited. But so it was only when we were talking later that it was like, all right, how exactly did it become toxic? What were the little scenes that showed us that this was no longer functional and that this was malicious and dangerous and not someone you want to be around? Everything else you want to get a note of least of working girl, or you want to bring up something else?
Something else?
You want to go into another story or bring up a different point?
Well, the other point I definitely wanted to discuss today was how Tangled is not actually an example of toxic femininity. It is like textbook narcissistic parenting behavior, mother ghost. That is what it is an example of, even though I can see where it can be confusing because motherhood. So honestly, in order to really discuss that, we would first need to discuss also serial mom. Serial mom, there is a toxic female character. However, she's also a mother. So we can really compare and contrast Mother Ghost versus Kathleen Turner's character in Serial Mom. Beverly. Because these are two different kinds of mothers, and one is narcissistic and the other is toxic and also a serial killer. But not narcissistic, which is fascinating because, like, that's how you know this is a fairy tale and serial mom is it's a serial killer without any narcissistic behaviors. So that's some fascinating stuff.
Really, now watching it, I don't think she really qualifies as much as a serial killer.
As a mass murderer?
Yeah, it's more of a mass murderer. As serial killers are more of, well, she's such a blend between the two. Like, you can tell that this is
I really
satire because serial killers tend to have a way they need to kill for them to get emotional effect their brain is needing for why they are, sort of compelled to kill. Versus mass murderers are more going for an effect on society, and that is more of what we actually see her trying to do. Um, that is kind of what you also want to talk about with serial mom, was that internalized female collective of I must act for the whole, or else the whole will act upon me.
So that's a lot where the toxicity is in serial mom. Female behavior. And part of what makes these behaviors, like what is motivating these behaviors to start with, is more of society's toxicity about womanhood, women, females. So women are made responsible for a whole huge swath of society, yet they are given no authority over them, or given very little authority. Um, and so essentially, they're between a rock and a hard place. And as my father used to say, in a rock and a hard place lies madness. But Daddy used to say, wasn't wrong. Um, and that was his explanation for why seemingly, quote, normal, healthy people go mad. In reality, that is not accurate. That is not why people go mad, but it is a type of stress that eventually people can buckle under. So, women in general are considered responsible for any child in the vicinity. I myself have experienced this, where I am not even taking care of those children. I don't know these children's names, and yet other passersby assume I'm responsible for said children. It's like, no, I don't know where these children are. Well, why don't you talk to them? Like, excuse me, because I am not offering childcare to strangers. Oh, surely you know how to talk to them. You're a woman after all. Like, what does hi, what does womanhood have anything to do with knowing how to like communicate with strange children? These children literally wandered in from the woods. I do not know who they are, why they are here, where their parents are. To them, you don't know children are nearly rabid. I got an argument with a man about that. Out of the park. And I said, you should be so confident that anybody can go up and talk to strange children. And they will do as you say. Why don't you give it a try right now? He's like, fine, I will. And I'm like, I'm going to sit here and I'm going to watch this show. He came back with bruises and bites. And I did laugh in his face. He was mad and he got in his truck and he drove off. And those children kept saying, did you send that man? And I'm like, no, I told him to avoid you. I said, these children came from the forest. I have no idea who they are. And they're like, okay. He was telling us that we need to not be here without a parent and all this. We just know what we want. I'm like, you do whatever you want. I will be here at the park bench. I'm here to read. My father picked me up a little bit. You live your life. They're like, okay. Children are rabid. So there's like all this societal pressure that women need to automatically know how to speak to children and are responsible for all children within their purview. Also, the women are responsible for any other woman that is in the immediate vicinity, within the sound of my voice or within my vision, that I am somehow now responsible for any other woman present, and how she behaves is reflected on me. Excuse me, I don't know these strangers. How is this a reflection on me? But that is how society treats women, that we're all responsible for the behavior of other women. So if a random woman, again, walks from the forest and then proceeds to strip down just her skivvies and get on the swing set, somehow I'm responsible? I am not. I am not responsible for random people who walk out of the forest, y'all. Those people are not necessarily human. They could be shapeshifters. For all I know, I am not responsible. But society says I am. Society says you're a woman. For all other women, you're responsible for any children you see, and you are responsible for the mental well-being of any men in your household. Because if he's, it must be because you didn't make dinner on time, you don't have a clean house, or you nagged at home, so on. Or if it's a sexual relationship, you're not putting out or giving him satisfactory count. That is what society tells us. And so there's this critical amount of pressure to somehow exert some level of influence or control on all these people we have no control over, have no influence over. I think that's why so many women want to become quote influencers is they think influencers can actually influence people versus no. The more ridiculous the job, the more ridiculous the title. We are in charge of women's mental health situation in the UK 21st century. The longer the title, the more worthless the job. I have no authority. Influencer is a ridiculous title. I influence you. Honey, I just opened my mouth and I said what I thought. Whether you listen or not is your business. I have no control over how you think. I can only tell you my perspective and see if somehow that rings true for you, or is this a useful item for you, or maybe you could tell me what your problem is, and I could tell you if I have found any solutions that I like to, but I cannot influence you. Mostly your own life influences you. Your own life influences how you react to stuff. Your background, your childhood influences you. Me, just random person on Instagram, I have no actual influence.
I think it's I think influencer is a little bit of a misnomer. It is more of I don't know how you put it on the other side of aspirationals of like
He's
try
just called salesperson.
of what being your influencers are people who are trying to create the image of someone other people aspire to be.
Honestly, that'd be more like an image
Met, but of
designer. Ah, ah,
a like design.
yes, that is definitely a more accurate and honest title, and that's how you know who it is. But it that title appeals to a lot of people, again, because society says you should be influencing people on how they behave. And when you fail, you're a failure. Not that this is not possible. It is not possible to. I have cared for so many children in my lifetime so far. Some of them were family members, most of them were not. I was lucky if I could influence them to please take your pants down before you use the potty. I'm not talking about just toddlers. I am also talking about like children in elementary school and even middle school. I'm like, how did you make it to middle school? You still get confused about how your pants work. How did this happen? And they're like, meh. And I'm just like, you need more sleep or something. I don't understand how you're getting confused by how your pants operate. I thought we read that out of people. Anyways, I know, I know. Now I suspect that particular child hormones just started early. Puberty had started early. Thinking about it, yes. Physically, I think puberty had started way early for that child. Hello, Jules. So Megan says, Tom, I think you should try speaking louder at the beginning when you and Gloria are switching off because the mic seems to not pick up what you say for a minute.
Okay. Yeah. I'll try that. Also, I was thinking since we're in the room, I might also go try grabbing my mic. since there shouldn't be any real echo this short a distance. I will do that though after the break. We can.
Oh, great. Everybody gets to experiment with us. I love doing this with live on air. This is great.
I mean, we really be the awkward siblings now.
Anyway. Honestly, we're also having some Wi-Fi issues, so things are going. But like that is a bunch of it is women in particular are told that they are responsible for all sorts of people that they have little to no influence over. How can you be responsible when you don't have any influence, let alone any consequences or authority? But that is what we are told.
I think we now call that middle management help, where you have responsibility without the authority, and so you're blamed for things but you are not given any capacity to fix them in advance, to make them in any way better or more functional. You are just, essentially the whipping child. You're the one there to be punished, and that is where you start seeing all this dysfunction. One of the things I started to notice as I thought more after watching Serial Mom, probably in part because Kathleen Turner does this grin whenever she goes into malicious killer mode. I mean, I see with Roger Ebert, I thought she camped up very well.
I agree.
Um,
Her performance was campy. I loved it. Very much a John Waters film.
yes. But I look at it now the the female, 20-year prior version of what became the movie The Joker, of where you start to question her reality. Is this all happening? Because these are such ridiculous ways to kill people, let alone in public. There's one murder where, it's at a concert and she drops the lights and then lights this guy on fire. And the response from the crowd is to cheer. And the band people just literally add fuel to the fire of this person. Of like, this is insane. And that's sort of also what we got in the Joker, except, it's a man versus a woman, but both of them are very toxic.
I did not watch.
No one disagrees about that.
Of course, I'd never watched Serial Mom before this week either.
I love
Yes. Oh yeah, I hated as a kid when I'd get in trouble for what my sister did because I was older and was supposed to know better. Like again, you can say if you do that you'll get in trouble, but 9 times out of 10 the kids will be like, okay, and then does it anyway because they'd already decided to do it. Nobody's going to stop them. Not even an adult who is responsible and has authority is going to be able to stop them. Of like, no, they just do what they want. It should be that your job as an older sibling is merely to know how to call 911.
And to give a more true and accurate accounting of what really happens. Was the fire started before the behavior, like the younger sibling said, or did they start the fire and then try to put it out?
Yeah.
So I mean, but yeah, so if anything, it's actually a bit easier to write this type of toxic behavior in pretty much everyone who's not a white man, because society gives them responsibility without authority so often.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, people crack. That is where you get those, just awful managers of they have been yelled at and berated and essentially taken the blame for everyone else's behavior so long that they are now in advance transferring it to those under them. because they have no way of actually affecting anything. And yeah, this is especially what I saw in Serial Mom of her. What she actually said her motivations were was that trying to make society better. All of them were somehow problematic to society. But instead of her having an entire little enclave, like say Body Snatchers, do this will, or a few other movies where where we would have a group of people going, we want to prune society for the better. Oh, what was that? Hot stuff, or not hot stuff. Uh, Simon Pegg and his friend is cops. Hot
Hot
Fuzz.
Fuzz.
Hot Fuzz.
What a name.
Yeah. Usually see these as little enclaves doing this versus.
I went to blow my nose and realized I had muted it. No one could hear, and Tom was still talking. I was trying to protect everybody if they're on headphones.
No, just the whole technical difficulties.
Yeah. Anyway, continue. I'm so sorry to interrupt your train, Tom.
Yeah, usually there are enclaves that do this, but since it's alone, oh, this is just a mad serial killer. Versus no, it's usually that's an entire group of mad people. The response to a problem shouldn't be, oh, we could just kill them. Versus no, we need to talk with them. We need to improve things and help as a community. Instead of going, if they can't function, then we just have to get rid of them. That is not functional. That is a very dysfunctional thought process.
I hear that though from people.
Oh, I do too. And we need more stories that kind of show how dysfunctional and toxic that is. Of well, if they aren't already at 100% functionality, then we need to just leave them behind and get rid of them. Of that is the problem with the billionaires.
Honey, it's a problem with regular people. That's the real issue is nowadays people are, because it used to be back in the 20th century that people thought, oh, all these people with these whacked out views, these dysfunctional views, that it's just born out of ignorance. They don't know better. They don't have access to the truth with capital T. And now with the internet and being able to access all sorts of information and also all sorts of misinformation and disinformation, we have all been enlightened that that is not why these people have whacked out. That no matter what truth you bring them, they will be dysfunctional. And it's not like 5% of the human population. It's like 40%. It is majority minority.
Yes, what percentage believe in dragons in England?
Oh, 5% of all UK citizens apparently believe that dragons are real and they are not out the little tiny lizards that live in Indonesia.
They're so cute.
They're so cute. They can't fly. They just fall from the trees. They have wings. They're vestigial wings, but they're super adorable. And no, they're not talking about that. They are talking about dragons the size of city blocks that can decimate any town, any city. I think those are real. Where are they hiding? In the mountains. So yeah, that's 5% of the entire British citizenry. Probably accurate for the entire rest of the planet, if not even more people, more than 5%.
I was gonna say,
Who cannot tell the difference between fact and fiction on television. And well, yes, we all know those people. We went to school with them. We grocery shop with them. They are real people. some people are also still able to maintain a driver's license and keep remembering when to shut the boat. And they are absolutely convinced that dragons are real. Mm, I don't say. I have a degree in human psychology, and nope. I'm like, meh.
I mean, given the amount of people who are also so sure still of demon possession, like,
But a lot of religions like continue to exacerbate that.
true.
So people in authority to that person are still pushing that agenda. So I could see that actually being more confusing versus I'm not really aware of like a group like like a lot of religious people pushing the dragons are real or any other people in authority. Like there's not like a whole lot of law enforcement organizations are like really all.
Larry, you would not believe the percentage of people, the number of people I've heard tell me that the movies Paranormal Activity were real.
I was there, Tom, in the late 90s and 2000s too.
No,
Okay.
no, that's Blair Witch. Now I'm talking about Paranormal Activity in the late 2000s, early 2010s. Of where like I think the mom gets possessed.
Yes, yes, I'm familiar, but they're all that style of found footage. But I was like, I was there. I was there the whole time.
People still think they're all real. Like, no, they didn't make that up. Yeah, like they totally write this story. They did. But yeah, I was surprised how well they do talk about Serial Mom, the collective, the need to enforce societal norms, or else it will come back upon you. Like, and even do this very directly with the whole, no wearing white after Labor Day scene of, times have changed. No, they haven't. Of, this we have to enforce all. Like, but there is that internalized view. We do have that of not everyone, when they get through being a teenager, loses that personal audience of, you always feel like others see what you're doing, even if there's no one there.
I think it's also though this idea of if I have to follow the rules, you do too. Which I'm really glad that the younger folks are actively discussing that this is highly dysfunctional. This idea, if I had to suffer through my childhood, my adolescence, my early 20s, poverty or whatever, you do too. If I have student loans and nobody's paid mine off and I had to pay mine off in 25 years, well, you have to suffer too. You don't get a break, even though we could do a break for you. That we as society have seen how dysfunctional student loan debt is, and that is actually really hurting the economy, and it is actually making people poorer. That if I have to, but I had to deal with it, so therefore you have to deal with it. You don't get any help, even though we now know that it's actually hurting everybody. That you have student loans hurts everybody. I would rather suffer with a slower economy than you have help in this thing that would actually accelerate our economic growth. That is the issue. And that's what makes it dysfunctional is you're preventing the growth and the correct movement of because you are upset that other people will not suffer, you suffer. I'm going to give you a hint here. I'm going to tell you something that my parents told me, and I got to be honest with you, when I was a teenager, I was skeptical about it. So I expected to be skeptical, but thankfully they've now actually done some longitudinal studies, and it turns out everyone suffers. No matter how rich or poor, no matter how smart or unintelligent a person may be, or even like the mental deficits, mental challenges they may have, physical disabilities they may have, it doesn't matter. Everyone ADHD is good. Coffee. Everyone, no matter their status in life, suffers. They don't suffer a little. The rich do not suffer a little bit less than the poor. It turns out everybody suffers what to them feels super serious. It's because, in part, what you suffer is subjective to your own experience. So, a wealthy person losing 25% of their expected income, like, you're like, excuse me, you have 75% of your income. It's enough to support a small village. You don't need all that money, and they are still gonna hurt. They hurt for that because it's effective. They're like, but it's billions. It's like, but you already have millions. Like, you don't need. Versus the person who is like barely making 50,000 a year, and they lose 3,000 of their income for the year. I mean, that's devastating to them. So again, suffering, well, yes, it is true that the suffering of some seem trivial to us. It still hurts. It still gives them nightmares. It still gives them trauma they have to go see therapists about. We can all comfort ourselves with that. We can also comfort ourselves that the rich therapists have to listen to this crap all day. I know it warms me up sometimes.
Must keep a serious face.
Oh yes, must, knowing full well they are actually less effective because they are talking to wealthy people, and wealthy people are typically known to not value anyone else's opinion but their own. And so, yes, that is what rich, wealthy therapists have to come to themselves, is the cold hard knowledge they are actually less effective therapists who see people of far lower incomes. That's right, suffering is all around. Great. So great. So again, everyone suffers, and there is no need to and others suffer for you to feel justified in your own suffering. If you realize you feel that way, that means you have trauma you need to work through. That's what it means. It is literally what the flag means. If you're like, I would rather cut off my nose to spite my face, that means congratulations, you've got trauma work. You've got a long road ahead of you. It's going to be a winding journey. And if you do it effectively, you'll get some art out of it. So maybe a little music therapy. Yeah. Hey, have you thought about writing? Have you thought about writing as your therapy? Or as you work out your trauma? What an idea. Throw that out. So that is what we're talking about dysfunctional. There is a way to do it that would be smarter, that would be healthier, that would actually be more effective for everyone involved. And the person's like, no, I'm going to do it this other way, even though I see how there is a more functional way to address this, but I don't want to do it. I don't want to do it for fill in the reason. Everybody's got a reason. People will freaking make up reasons. None of them. They're just reasons. They're not good reasons.
Well, they're reasons explaining feelings,
It's not a good reason.
and that's the real
Feelings
difficulty.
don't need explanations. Feelings just exist. They don't need to be explained.
And since they don't really address the feelings, you can't, the reason doesn't matter. The reason is just an excuse to explain away why you feel that way. Instead of looking at, but why am I feeling this way? Why do you constantly feel threatened? What is wrong with your situation? Or what previously has been that you still haven't acknowledged and you're no longer in? As I said, you've got trauma work to do.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so shall we take a little break?
You like a little breaky break? And when we come back, hello, Nia. When we come back, what shall we discuss?
I don't remember.
Well, we were talking about serial bombs, so we could talk about Mother Goth from Tangled
Oh, that's true.
and
Yeah.
how we could compare and contrast these two characters. That
Yeah.
is toxic womanhood or toxic trait of femininity and narcissistic parent behavior. Like, what is the? You need to know the difference, even if only you as the writer know the difference. You need to know the difference so you understand where you are taking these toxic characters.
That's true, because despite being a killer, Kathleen Turner's character,
Beverly,
Beverly, is actually a very good mother.
she is like God Waters. Why?
Versus Mother Goat is the opposite of, she works fine actually among people, a peer-to-peer group. It's when there's any power difference that she suddenly becomes this narcissistic, malicious, evil person. And yeah, like no, like the worst kind of person to have as a parent. So yeah, like let's when we come back, let's
Well,
talk.
to be an effective parent, you need to be altruistic.
Yes.
You need to be focused on this young person or younger anyway. This younger person and assisting them, supporting them as they grow and bloom to who they really are. And Mother Ghost does not do that because she is very insecure about protecting this one thing that she cares so much about. And she cares about one thing more than she cares about our main character, the child that she took and raised as her own. Um, like that is the issue at hand. She is not supportive versus, interestingly enough, Beverly in Serial Mom is in fact supportive of her children and also deflects and shields her children from essentially what she perceives, and I actually agree with her, what she perceives as incorrect criticism. Like where the math teacher is upset that Chip was drawing, what turned out to actually be a movie poster. And I was like, oh, this is so concerning. And she's like, what do you mean? Of like, yeah, kid, she's being Chip. She doesn't come home and say, your teacher says you got to stop drawing these horrific class. She doesn't relay the unnecessary criticism to Chip because he does not need that. That would actually wilt his blossoming. That would wilt him from blooming. She would not know to the mother. She is supporting him. So she's trying to create this environment by which best grow her children into fully formed, blossoming adults. The same where she says to her daughter, who says, the daughter's boyfriend, Ricky Lake, such a great actress. I mean, truly, you can tell. John Waters really knows how to direct Ricky Lake. But Ricky Lake is like, my boyfriend says if I lose some weight, he'll out, blah, 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 blah. And her mother, instead of going, "Oh, that boy, he's just terrible," it's like, "But like I fully support you wanting to maybe be healthier, but what does weight loss have to do with going to this concert or this event? I think it might have been a theme park. If you want to lose weight, that is your right and your business. But why is he involved? And like she is instead asking questions rather than saying, just making these blanket statements and expecting her daughter to just follow along. She's instead trying to have a conversation while also making clear her own point of view of, I just want you to be healthy and I support you in wanting to be healthy. But I support your boyfriend having like strong opinions about your body shape. What is that his business? And so, like again, oddly enough, Serial is such a good mom. We also see that in that her children want to support her, but also understand, oh, we could profit off of this. And it's not I profit off of it, it's we as a family can profit off of mom's notoriety. So we really see that also her children are happy to collaborate both with each other and with other people, including victims of those that Beverly may or may not have slayed in the viewpoint of her. So that's what we will discuss when we come back from break. May I recommend now is a wonderful time to about do you have something to drink? Oh, is the fact that Tom gave me my Ursula mug for this episode any coincidence? Probably not. Maybe a little juice, some tea, water. We are a hydrate or dihydrate crowd. Anyway, when we come back, you know what we'll discuss? We'll see y'all in just a few minutes. Really?
And we're back.
Hello, hello.
So, how would everyone do? You take a little self care,
A little snacky snack.
a little drinky drink.
Little-
A little nibble nibble.
little- I play with them all day. I used to play with Dad. I sit on the couch, watching your little Westy. Endless conversations with my father.
Hey, Charlie.
Hello.
We were just talking about your favorite town,
What's down?
Baltimore, and Serial Mom.
Oh, Baltimore. Love is like an open door.
I believe the line Glory hasn't said on camera, but I have enjoyed most from Glory's review of Serial Mom. It everywhere looks seedy in this movie. And John Waters is just shooting around Baltimore, but it's like there is no place that's not seedy in this city.
Even the municipal roads are crappy. Aw, I'm sorry you're not feeling well, sweetie. I can totally understand. I have a dentist appointment tomorrow. I'm not thrilled about. I finally got the laptop sort of running. Now I have to deal with dentist. Will the slings and arrows of fate never end?
Yeah, as we left off the last hour, Beverly in Serial Mom is actually a very good mother. Like, she cares for her children. She talks with her husband. She communicates. And this is very, in stark contrast to what's the problem with Mama Ghost in Tangled. Of, this is a very narcissistic character. It's not her femininity that's the problem. It is her just straight up narcissism.
Well, Mother Goat's narcissistic parenting.
Yeah.
Specifically. And there is a growing theory in the field of psychology about at least people who register high the dark thread, specifically in narcissistic traits, that what they've noticed is a correlation, a very strong correlation with anxiety. And so they do think that anxiety, in fact, can lead to narcissistic behaviors. And we see that to varying degrees in how Mother Goth interacts with, oh, what is the girl's name from Tangled? I literally watched it last night. Now I can't remember. What is her name? Everyone want to call her Lisa? Okay. I know it's not. Google.
Rapunzel.
That's how it is. Puzzle. Good lord, this character called. Is it Rapunzel? We'll call her Rapunzel. I don't know. I thought she was called something else, but
Rapunzel.
all right. Rapunzel it is. Everybody correct. Okay. So Mother Goth is afraid of so what had happened was she's got this special flower. I gather there's only one. And she wants to stay young. Now, either she, like it's not a merely a vanity, definitely a vanity aspect to that. But there is also this sort of it's a kind of immortality if you never age and your body falls apart. So she is able to have a kind of immortality as long as she doesn't stray too far from the flower. However, the queen she is sick and all the villagers and the military go out to find the flower and makes I don't know soup, tea, whatever with the flower. Okay, and then now the baby's beautiful. Cool, cool, great. Kill the one flower to save the queen. There's a whole other issue with that. Anyway, now the little kid maybe has all the qualities of the flower. Mother Goth originally only goes in there to cut the hair off to retain the magic of the flower and then finds that the hair from the girl it no longer works and also that hair doesn't grow back, which that's wild. All right, the scarcity idea. Oh, so anyway, so she's like, I'll take the bill. Just take the bib, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Hello, Spence. I feel like a spent you talking about things, but okay. A little bit. So she takes the baby and I don't it's not in the movie, but I remember coming across it when I was researching Tangled that in prior versions of Disney workshopping the story, the reason why Mother Goth had to keep little Rapunzel happy. Gothel, sorry. Okay. I have auditory dyslexia. Y'all know that. No, I was actually calling her Mother Goth. Like the philosopher. Goth. There's no L in that. But all right, Gothel. I don't care. I have no pony in this race. This is not one of my dearly beloved Disney stories for me. I'm way too old. So anyway, it's just like, haha. So, but in one of the prior versions um, of this, the reason why Mother Gothel had to be she did, like as if she loved this little girl, was because when she's sad, when Rapunzel's sad, the magic doesn't work. So she couldn't scare Rapunzel into singing the song and being renewed by the hair. She had to make Rapunzel feel love. Only Mother Gothel did not feel that love. At least she did not feel it for Rapunzel. So that is sort of baked into the story, even though it didn't make the final cut. And I think it's important in this. So Mother Gothel, from the very start, realized very early on she could not be honest about, look, you're just a thing to me. You're just a means to an end. She had to pretend like she loved this girl. And so what we end up seeing is a lot of narcissistic parenting traits. If you are interested in making a villain like that, and what a fantastic one, I say that as somebody who definitely had parents in our way. Um, there are so many fantastic videos made by actual real life licensed therapists on YouTube about narcissistic parenting behaviors. I cannot recommend them enough.
one, we can recommend 2 or 3 different ones
therapists,
so you
yes,
can find
good ones that at
style you
least,
like.
yeah, like, yeah, there's a bunch of them. I really appreciate that these are licensed therapists. They're not just randos out there just saying the things. It's like, no, no, these people who actually know what they're talking about. These were taught correctly. And, and then are making videos where they're actually playing out these roles.
That's the part I love is when they
Oh,
role play both sides.
oh God, my heart of like, oh man. And I did make Tom watch because he used to be in a little bit denial about how narcissistic our parents behave toward us. And then I got him to watch some of these videos with role playing. He was like, well, I'm convinced. Like, yeah, like literally, we both have had these exact conversations with various of our parents. So, while Mother Gothel is uh, toxic, she's absolutely toxic. I'm not debating that with anybody. She's absolutely toxic. She is a different kind of toxic from what like is the subject of the show, which is toxic femininity. Femininity comes toxic. That is different from narcissism and its toxicity. Specifically, if you are curious, Mother Gothel really does exhibit quite a bit of vulnerable narcissism behaviors rather than grandiose narcissism. There's two flavors of narcissism if you are curious. Um, as far as like personality disorders, and there's grandiose, which you may remember a former president, or as who I like to call Orange Cheeto, exhibits like the entire of grandiose narcissism. Mother Gothel, on the other hand, exhibits quite a bit of vulnerable narcissism. And we see where a lot of her narcissistic thinking and her narcissistic behavior comes from is this fear, this insecurity of losing this treasure that she wishes to maintain, specifically the life renewing qualities that Rapunzel now embodies. So it's something to think about of if that is the kind of character you wish to investigate, that is what you're looking for. That is not specifically toxic femininity, even though you're thinking, oh, well, but motherhood. And yes, you can have toxic motherhood type traits, which we see in Beverly, a serial mom. So that kind of toxicity is anybody who hurts my child, I'm going to go hurt. How dare you hurt my child? The best part is she sings to and hugs the hair. Yeah, she does not love Rapunzel. She loves the quality that Rapunzel embodies. She is not actually in love with Rapunzel as a person identity.
To give you a sort of proof this is not toxic femininity, you can gender swap Mother Gothel and you get Gollum from Lord of the Rings.
My precious. Where's my precious? Also, you can definitely have paternal narcissistic parenting, which again, there are several videos on YouTube available from licensed therapists that exhibit these behaviors and role play them out for you. If you are interested in that for your characters, or maybe to just feel vindicated about your own childhood, you know what? I'm not here to tell you how to live your life. I think it's great if writers do their therapy and work through their trauma. I think it's important.
I'm not sure I know the reference.
I don't. Yeah, I don't know.
The Hell's Fire.
Not sure. Is it a movie? I get to watch Best, the TV movie.
Although the description alone,
Yeah, I've
toxic.
heard about it. I've heard some. I've had two different folks give me a play-by-play the entire movie. They had not asked for about the movie. Um, but again, like the toxic parts of motherhood is part of the greater umbrella of femininity, where femininity becomes toxic. the dysfunction part. Murdering people straight up is dysfunction. Straight up. Any aspect. Murdering people, like particularly if it's premeditated, like there's in the moment where a bear is coming and you got children and you stab them to death. It's a little different because you're like, he actually like trying to eat my babies. Like totally understandable. And you know, you gotta defend your very delicious, juicy babies. Get it. That's a little different from a premeditated murder. And it's definitely a slippery slope. But premeditated murder, questionable. Very questionable. Like again, there's always like okay, nothing is entirely black. Where you have humans, it is never black. Okay, it's always shades of gray. It's always a spectrum. It's never just a binary system. And are flexible. We have less minds, and we will adapt to pretty much any situation we're in, which is how we are the dominant species on this planet. Being adaptable is a very useful trait, but it also means that you know, there's really no binary, let alone black and white for that. There's always but options. So, oh, I have not watched this movie in like 20 plus years. Aside from racism, some other stuff. Also, the ableism. Yeah, there we are. It's the racism and ableism. Like, why? Why do I want so much infuriating together? Also, it wasn't that written by Victor Hugo? That guy. Okay, anyway, no. Focus court. Okay, so
Look, I'm not disagreeing. I watched it on my birthday and I was traumatized.
we will be having an after party meeting in my Discord server. If anybody else needs aftercare for all the traumatic movies that we've all been forced to watch as young people. So, anyway, so I hope that I have helped clarify the difference between toxic feminine traits, that kind of dysfunction, versus narcissistic parenting traits of that type of dysfunction. They are both dysfunctional. They are dysfunctional in different ways. So again, like if you need a shortcut in your brain for well, how do I keep it without having to like analyze everything? You go. If you see a character exhibit a lot of anxiety, or you know, secondary or tertiary anxiety behaviors, then more than likely you're also seeing narcissistic behaviors. Okay. What we have found in studying the dark tetrad, Machiavellianism, psychopathy, narcissism, and sadism. Those are the dark tetrad. What we have found in studying this over the last, I don't know, 25, 30 years, particular narcissism, is where you have anxiety, even in regular people, you're going to see more narcissistic behavior exhibited as well. Anxiety does not show up alone. Anxiety brings its best friend, narcissism, with it.
Versus serial mom, you really do not see any real narcissism.
There's a little bit of anxiety.
There's a little, but it's not noticeable. Like it really doesn't play much into her personality. If anything, it's like, why doesn't she have more fear? Why doesn't she worry more? She is just true impulse.
Yeah, that's definitely more psychopath.
Yeah. She has impulsivity problems.
Oh, yeah.
But definitely. She doesn't really have fear. She has concern. Like, you know, we see her concern about her kids. We see her concern about society's behaviors, but we don't actually see concern about her own life. She does not actually feel endangered in her own life and existence.
Hmm.
She is just trying to keep out elements she doesn't want in her life.
Hmm.
She is very proactive. But we'll also see she's positively proactive. She befriends a lot of people. She tries to do her best to help other people feel better. Um, we see her bringing, little drinks to the trash men, and we see her, just bringing
She's really good friends with the what is it? What do they call it now? Garbage maintenance,
sanitation.
sanitation maintenance workers. They've got names.
Yeah, and
I swear one of them was called from me.
yeah, I think so. And at the beginning as well, she is actually very nice when she does the little parent-teacher meeting.
Yeah, she brought a fruitcake.
A homemade one.
No one else was holding. All the other parents sitting in the hallway. None of them brought gifts to their teacher, which my parents. You got to bring. Also, teachers don't get half as many gifts as frankly they deserve putting up with children. I know that I don't necessarily feel like gift teachers, but I do feel like every teacher deserves at least like bath bomb and some lotion. Like rough. It's rough being there with like little psychopaths every day trying to like teach them stuff. I love teaching, and it's still like this is hard, and also I can't go teach what I want. That is the indignity they don't talk about. Hello, Eva. So I hope that you have questions about the difference between toxic kids. So where is Beverly in Serial Mom Toxic? She too uses her femininity as a shield several times. As if little old me, oh, I'm just nobody you should ever worry about. I'm totally sweet and innocent.
I would never say those words.
I don't even know those words exist. And Reggie, so you're a woman. What? What? Obviously, she knows these words. So she's using her femininity as a shield to deflect any sort of suspicion about her. We also see that she is very familiar with everyone else's dark side. Her neighborhood, she knows all the dirt on everybody. And what my actual only real criticism of the movie Serial Mom is that for how the character of Beverly is, they really don't show that there was some exciting event that changed Beverly's perspective from dealing with people to I just will murder them. I'm not even going to try to negotiate anymore. I'm just gonna murder them. Like there needed to have been a strong motivator that moved her from prank calling stuck up neighbor, which was the night honestly kind of common. When I was a kid and a teenager, our family got prank calls. To which my answer was, why do you think they call fans member cock? It doesn't look like you want. And like literally, I would have callers just get upset, sigh heavily, and hang up. They were tired of these conversations. To be neurodivergent is how you counteract prank calls. Why do you think they call it? It's doesn't make any sense. It doesn't even look like one. It certainly doesn't sound like one. What do you think it's about? They're like, oh, I think you can't. Like, sorry, what? No. I can honestly even snack look like that. Like, and that was everyone in my family agreed I should be the one who always answers the phone. One who had to constantly answer the phone growing up and when I was a teenager. Everyone else was like, Laura's phone. Because, like, here I'm just, hello, what are you wearing? I'm wearing boots. That is literally the kind of prank calls we used to get. With like, hey there, what are you wearing? Clothes? you know, like everybody, the dog's naked, like, kind of clothes, a shirt and pants. Oh, and I also have sneakers on. Don't tell my mom. Why? Is that naughty? She just doesn't like when we wearing shoes in the house. But I don't like walking around in socks because my socks keep catching. Like there's nothing sexy about this. Like go into like the whole explanation about how my socks catching on the wood, the floorboards, and then I go into an entire about why do the floorboards keep like sort of slightly splintering. Well, no one else in my family does this, and I can't keep trying to like rub the sandpaper all the time because this is me working. I don't care that my father says no, you just rubbing. And like, and I'm like, what kind of grit do I need? 100? What is I walk around in sneakers for my mom?
Just ruined all the prank calls.
Yeah, just I know that they now say like prank calls lead to I don't know psychopathic behavior and stuff. I'm not sure I really buy into that. I think it's like it's a loneliness that leads to a lot of prank calling.
Yeah.
But honestly, it just never seemed people were really calling us with malice. Also, what y'all don't know is I um, have this real ability to hear someone's voice once and be able to identify them anytime, even when they're trying to muffle their voice or whatever. So that also really dissuaded a lot of prank calls. Because if I knew you, I knew when you were trying to prank call me. I'm like, hey, TT, what you doing? Why are you calling? Like, demanding that I like tell you what I'm wearing. That's weird. What are you wearing? Are we going out? Is that why you're asking what I'm wearing? Because you want to pick me up and go out? Oh, okay. All right. Well, I'll be here in 20 minutes. Like, a literal conversation I had when I was with a friend who had originally called me. And I did not realize it until while I was waiting for her going, was she calling to prank me? I'm going to demand that we prank call other people in her house. Like, show me how you do it. Again, how to ruin the fun of a prank caller. Now teach me your ways. Let me watch you prank call. It involves a lot of giggling, is what I learned.
Yes.
I don't get it. But
There's
okay.
a lot of background giggling. As prank calling used to also be a group activity.
Yes, like there's always like multiple people on the other line listening in. Like, is your refrigerator running? Yes. Better go get it. Like, why is that funny? It's a terrible dad joke. It's literally what prank calls were. So it's like people calling, telling you bad jokes, giggling over it, and other people who answer the call being mad about it. You would like to explain that, please. Feel free how I don't understand bad jokes is supposed to make people great. Versus if you call me and you just start spewing out language, it's like what I did do, because that did happen a couple times when we lived up in Oxford, which is the home of Ole Miss, if you've ever heard of it. And there was somebody used to call and like spew out bad words, and often mom was home when it happened because I was usually babysitting. But one time I was home when it happened. Mom had just left to run an errand, so of course I answered the phone and somebody's just and I'm like, well, what is a word I'm not going to say? I don't understand. Do you think that they were called that because like that's like a family name? They're like, it's just a name. I'm like, do you think because they look like a cat, or do you think it's because they bred cats and they look like a cat? What does a human who looks like a cat look like? Because I go to school. I used to. This is true. I actually used to go to school with somebody with a boy who I swear to God looked like a cow. I swear to Tom knows this person too, and he does look like a cow. I've showed Tom the exact cow that kid used to look like. And on Facebook, and he still looks like a cow. And it looked like a blonde cow, y'all. And especially this judgy look on this one cow. I found this picture, and I'm like, that's exactly it. I'm like, yeah, you're right. So I was like, do you think that like what is it? I know what a cow person looks like, but what would a cat person? And they're like, ugh, and they just hung up. And that was like the last time they ever called spewing bad words when somebody answered the phone call us again. Because there I am, like ready to analyze and diagram all the naughty words that I did not understand. I was supposed to feel ashamed for hearing, but instead I'm like, how do you think that's done in real life?
Always. Always ready for this.
Always be neurodivergent when people are trying to insult you and see how far it gets you. Just neurodivergent. Don't take that societal shame. That's BS. That's my advice. I found it to be pretty useful though.
Yeah.
All right. Shall we talk about Mean Girls?
Go on. I'm sure some people here have some opinions about Mean Girls.
So again, what makes this particularly toxic is the female collective. You're going to hear me say this a lot because, especially growing up in Mississippi in the deep South, I have felt a lot of pressure from the female collective to conform to certain behaviors. Everything from a lady only ever crosses her legs at the ankle, never above, and never sprays her legs apart. Honey, it is summertime and hot. I can air the girls out. You know what I'm saying? Like, the humidity is real, okay? Have I ever aimed a fan at that area on me? It didn't work because they get hot, okay? It's hot here, and it's incredibly so. But the female collective is like, you can't wear white after Labor Day. You need to always look well composed. Like, honey, life is life. What does it matter? And also, why are you how I look all the time? What does it matter that I look flushed right now? Because I'm freaking hot. You know, and not in a cool, sexy way, but it is 98 degrees outside and 80% humidity. This is insane. So, like, I have felt a lot of pressure my entire life from the time I was a toddler from the female collective. That is about real girls are to be seen and not heard. Suffer in silence and sit still over there. Like, why is it okay for me to suffer as long as I am silent? But that's part of the female collective. And that Mean Girls is very much showing the dark side of the female collective. The female collective is also, hey, you seem miserable, let's do a spa day. There are benefits to the female collective. The female collective says, hey, what's going on? You seem miserable every day time we see you. Come over, we'll have coffee and cake, and you can tell me what's going on, and we'll figure out how to solve your problems. And then you come back a month later and tell us what worked and what didn't work, and we'll figure out how to solve the problems that remain. So the female collective can be very useful. It's here, the female collective is there to support, but sometimes the female collective can be toxic. Like anything else with humans, you do it in the wrong direction hard enough, it becomes toxic. So the female collective, when it's positive, functional, is like, hey, we're here to support you eating healthy. That's what you want to do. We're here to like send you all the great salad recipes for I don't know something. And but also like the female collective, if it goes toxic, is like taking that, oh, we want you to eat healthy too. You're every time I see you eating cake, I'm gonna shame you and scold you. So again, like, I did not ask for that. You can go away and back. So
Oh no. Every time I see you eat cake, it makes me angry, and I'm going to be angry around you now. Like not even just shame, like no, just full on, anger. And
don't forget like saying ugly, terrible things like looks like pigs fighting under a blanket. It's so funny because you've seen it.
I know, I've seen it.
I know what I'm doing. There's actually a person, and
It's like, oh
their
my
dresses were way too tight. Is all I have to say. Their dresses were way too tight. Like, like I have nothing against anyone wearing tight clothes, but like I, I was concerned that they like were having blood flow issues. That's what I mean about too tight. I don't mean like, oh, her clothes are tight. No, I mean circulation. Tight. And so she could barely walk, but when she did, like those glute maximus were like fighting under that dress. This is so tight. Oh, bless her heart. I did try to talk to her about like what's how do you find clothes to wear? What is it's fine nicely to
I'd say some of the problem was she had an unusual figure,
yes.
and like she
So
had
in order for it to fit her up top, it had to be like, too small on the bottom. And I said, you know, you could always get a seamstress to make clothes, bespoke clothes for you that'll fit you. And I don't know that it'll actually cost much more than the clothes you're buying because, like, she bought nice clothes. Like, she was a very professional lady. She bought really nice, like, Donna Karen type clothes, like really nice stuff. And I'm like, consider because I looked at how much some of these dresses were, and I'm like, wait, how many hundreds of dollars? Barely get a decent amount to make something very similar that will fit you proportionally.
because like we're like
And then she started, and she looked a lot better. She also seemed more comfortable because it literally was like pinching her off when she sit because of the clothes, like pinching her. It was very uncomfortable. She wasn't thrilled wearing it. She just, she's like, my mother was a why did I ever think of this? And I'm like, everybody's used to ready-made fashion, but you don't have to. It's like when I lived in the Philippines, all my clothes were bespoke made, and y'all, the kind of wealth that I wish you ever go to. When your clothes fit you perfectly and are tailored to you, you're like, why would I ever wear ready-made fashion ever again?
because and one of the ways you can really see this is the seam on all of your shirts for the sleeve should always be literally on that little joint in your arm where your arm rotates and attaches to your torso.
Like, where your armpit,
Yeah,
right?
so it should be up here. And if it drops down, that's why you get all of these wrinkles
And it pull,
and
that
it pulls.
pull.
That's because it's incorrectly located.
Hmm.
Once it's bespoke, you're like, oh, this clothing just feels like another part of me.
And I actually really recommend having a seamstress if you're neurodivergent because neurodivergent people tend to be more consciously aware of like nerve endings, how their skin feels. And so they feel like seams. They're more conscious of the feeling of seams than neurotypical people. Not all neurodivergent people, but enough neurodivergent people, like I would dare to say the majority of, like more than 50%, are consciously aware of where all their seams are located in their clothing than neurotypical people are. And so having all your seams where they should be to be most comfortable and having the seams be soft enough and fitted correctly so that everything is an easy move and you never feel constrained, I think is actually more important for neurodivergent folks. So just quick there, you might be surprised how affordable seamstresses are, particularly if you do them with respect. And also that you don't give them hard deadlines, like need this in a week, but rather like, when do you get to it in a month? No, I realize you have a life, and that yes, you can see multiple seamstresses once, by the way. You can have multiple seamstresses working on outfits for you and understand that, some of them may take more than a month to do. Others may be able to pop that out in like a week or two. So just something, if you can afford it, I highly recommend it. If you can't afford it, have you considered buying a $20 or $30 sewing machine? Learning how to fill dress a sewing machine. Here are my favorite sewing machine of all time. First company, the easiest to feel dress. 1963 Singer, specifically in avocado green. I swear to you, I know that makes no sense, but I swear to you, the avocado green runs better than the harvest wheat gold 1963. I swear to you, I think it was satisfactory. I could be wrong on this. Could be just my, I see that, but I swear. He is offering a 1963 singer for like $3. They're out there. So anyway, girls, what do you have to say about Mean Girls?
Not a lot. Because for me,
About what makes it toxic?
I mean, for me, mostly it is just that collective response, that fear of stepping out, and so suddenly being caught, being removed from the entire group. It's the behaviors people do to maintain membership in a group, even if individually they notice that these are toxic behaviors, they will perpetuate them so they don't lose access to it. This is a bit more where that fear and narcissism intermingles with the toxic femininity of maintaining appearances, of maintaining membership. So you have to do these behaviors. You have to be, you have to appear relatively unintelligent. That and naive. I think there's at least one character, if not two of them, who are pretending to be dumber than they are just so they can be part of this. And that is definitely toxic behavior of, no, we have to let this person be in charge and always think that they are the smartest one or else we can't be part of this. And so they take on these toxic behaviors to be part of it, which just makes everyone's life worse, not just their own. That's mostly what I'm noticing was just this that need to belong, and so exaggerating the feminine characteristics to the point that they always became dysfunctional. I mean, what was it? Is it Tuesday? What day do we wear pink?
Wednesdays. It's always Wednesdays.
Again, that need to belong and be part of the group. We have to social signal, even if it's not a great look. But yeah, that just following along with someone else, even though you know they're toxic. Like you become toxic too. Because, well, yes, we all especially take note of, who's leading the group. I notice, the other followers more and how they end up being more, how they do more toxic feminine traits in the pursuit of belonging. That's really what I took notice of.
I think about how many of the girls were trying to weaponize their sexual appeal. And I consider that the toxic behavior. Like, it is normal to instinctively see that your sexual appeal attracts attention. And if you like that attention, if it is the attention from, at the very least, the right gender for you, to certainly try to use it more often because teenagers are, of course, horny. That is normal. I guess it's normal. I mean, is it? I don't know.
The
Straight
difference
to thirsty.
between the toxic and the regular is actually going back to Stereo Mom again. Ricky Lake's character is definitely feminine. She shows a lot of feminine traits, and she's
a thirsty girl.
She's a thirsty girl. Of just like, if you're a pretty face mode, she's gonna say hello. And several guys respond with the
yes.
of she's interested But that is not as toxic because she is not weaponizing it. She is not leading them on. She is showing genuine interest.
She is genuinely interested. She wants to know them well enough to see if she's interested in something further,
Yeah.
which is the positive version. That's functional. She's not trying to hurt hearts or anything or use people up like clinics, throw them away.
Or just to obtain stuff.
Right. She's not trying to use it to get an A or anything terrible like that. Versus Regina George and her crowd are definitely trying to weaponize their sexual appeal, manipulate people and their behaviors by using their sexual appeal for that. And that is a dysfunctional form of the feminine traits of it kills me to say these things, but um if I can hear like story guy and handlebar mustache say it, but okay. But again, that is like that's dysfunctional. It's toxic. You're using it just as like as if sexual appeal is a wide net by which to throw out and just catch any rando in your net and then manipulate them for the your means. Again, one of the hallmarks of toxic gendered behavior, one could say, is do the ends justify the means? If that character believes so, because there's plenty of means that do not justify the ends. And the ends justify the means is a very toxic belief system. So if you see a character using their gender, and you can see, almost imagine saying that these ends justify the means, that is a clue to you that this character is toxic, or at least has enough toxic traits to really push them more into the villainy role.
I think actually, Cherry, you're right.
Is that Rose? I thought that was Rose. No.
No. Amanda Bynes was also in there. She's a secondary character. And
Oh,
yes,
okay.
she's a goody two shoes character that is weaponizing and yet pulling these same behaviors. No, it's not the main character. Of course, I've forgotten it now.
Anyway.
But yeah, Amanda Bynes' character does all these same behaviors as well.
Like when you have a character, no matter their gender, who is, you can imagine saying the ends justify the means, there is a clue here they're toxic. Because no, the ends do not justify the means. Ask a German Nazi. No. The Nuremberg trials made that very, very clear. No, not
Just because someone else tells you to does not.
just because someone else says I have an authority and I we're supposed to. No, they don't. We're all responsible for ourselves.
There.
Thank you. Yes, that's what. Yes, I agree. The parents are the best.
I know they're so adorable.
Yes. So again, like when we think about these characters, these toxic, the characters are more toxic than they are functional. When we're thinking about these kind of characters, they often are the unspecified the means. Hence, we see like Beverly from Serial Mom. She gets to this point where she's like, "Look, the unspecified the means. I'll just kill people. I'll kill the teacher."
Oh God, I just remembered another set of women qualified for.
What?
Jay and Silent Bob. Strike Back.
Oh, the assassins or whatever, the thieves, the jewel thieves.
Yeah, the jewel thieves are also definitely
yes
for their weapons. It's toxic. At any point, your characters act like any of those women in Jay and Silent Bob, yeah, they're toxic automatically.
Yes, I like the debate though in the band.
Yes.
Many debates. Because at least they are discussing it rather than just
yeah.
So that is like that is what I want you to think about when you're considering your own toxic female characters. And maybe you just want a character with one toxic trait. When there's a multiple toxic traits that they start being to more of a villain. Maybe they're not the villain of this one story you're writing. Maybe they're a second or tertiary character, but villains still are if they are using these toxic traits. They're using the toxic behavior to navigate their life. That's still villainy.
I mean, to give you the minor versus the major version of this, um, look at feminine toxic gatekeeping. So in like Legally Blonde, we see a female teacher of hers essentially want her to dress a bit more serious as a form of gatekeeping because it's reflecting on all women. And that's a little minor toxic. We all recognize that. Versus the major one where we see now, and as pulling up the proverbial ladder behind them of, oh, I got up this way, but I can't let anyone else get up this way. I need to make sure no one can use my route.
Tom and I were literally talking about this last night.
And that's where you see
specifically white feminists eventually allowing Jewish Ashkenazi women into their enclave. Now, Ashkenazis, for the most part, read on the street as white. They didn't used to. Ashkenazi Jews in America did not become white until along with most Italians, and I'm forgetting another, the Albanians,
Mediterranean, the Greek.
Yeah, and like some of the Iranians also made it in, like as well. Yeah, some of the Mizrahi Jews also made it in, being perceived as white. The Irish, I think, didn't come perceived as white in the 1930s in America. So anyway, so in the 70s, feminism, white feminism, the white women accepted in the lower class, the middle class white women, as well as Jewish Ashkenazi and some Mizrahi Jewish women into their enclave. So, does that mean that the Jewish Ashkenazi and Mizrahi women then were like, hey, we should also be accepting women of color and all of these African American women and indigenous women and Asian American women? No, they pulled that ladder up right behind them. And we're like, no, that's a whole nother thing. Go to the Black Panthers if you want equality. That was not what the Black Panthers were about for women. They were very much a women should be cooking. So that was what we were talking about white women accepting in other women into feminism who appeared white. And then those women being newly accepted in, did they then go, hey, we should be more people of diversity? We'll extend the ladder a little further down so that at least middle class women of color could come in. And nope, that is exactly not what happened. Instead, women of color were excluded even harder. And that is what we're talking about. Once you're accepted in, you're supposed to extend the ladder down further for other people. You're supposed to help in to the group to get that further support as well as that further protection. And instead, they pulled the ladder up behind them. And I say that knowing full well that I am a woman of Ashkenazi Jewish descent and Mizrahi Jewish descent. And that, like my mother, I certainly saw my mother get routinely excluded from these feminist groups in the first time she would can, just like Tom, to the point that they were the color of light mahogany wood. And so mom stopped attending feminist gatherings in the summertime and only attended the middle because she would not be excluded from attending Japan would be. And then she was just olive Mediterranean.
Right.
Okay. All right. Well, it is time for another little bio break. What a wonderful time to make sure you have a snack. Did you know popcorn is the official snack of writers planet over? Are you a writer? Have you had popcorn lately? All writers need popcorn or other corn products to keep their writing pure. Yeah, but I'm not. All right. Well, we'll see y'all in a couple minutes. Hello and welcome back. It's Amelia here in my living room. Ain't nobody here but us chicken. Ain't nobody here at all. I guess school started back early. Or maybe just nobody's interested in this subject. Oh, well.
But,
Gender studies? What?
but one of the things that girls does really bring up,
Hmm.
along with say and Silent Bob, and to a lesser degree, Easy A, is that to really see toxic femininity, you do need to see these characters among other people, especially their own, like the ones that the femininity standards are also resting with, to see where, to see if it has become toxic. Of at a certain point, it is part of survival, and you maintain some of these. But when versus we see in all of these that no, the other feminine people around are not displaying these behaviors. They are not just toxic to the area around them in how they act and what they are doing.
How do your characters be inadvertently neurodivergent?
Hmm. I mean, there's another part of the subject.
So one of the things that neurodivergence is kind of known for, it's not true in every single person who is neurodivergent, but it is accurate in enough of the overall population of neurodivergent people, which is now being estimated to be as much as 1 in 3 people. So, sizable amount. Is an adequate amount of mirror cells in the brain, or at least an adequate amount of mirror cells firing off an action here. So what that means is, and we do see this in many neurodivergent people, is they are not noticing the deviation in their behavior compared to their peers. So let's say, for instance, everyone at an office has discussed for weeks in advance, we're going to have ugly sweater day. It's going to be great. We're all going to wear it. And like flyers are put out so everybody knows well in advance. There's enough time to go find ugly sweaters. There's people in the company chat talking about different places you can buy them and the sales they're having. So if anybody doesn't have an ugly Christmas sweater, they know where to go. And then on the day that everybody has agreed to show up with an ugly sweater, somebody doesn't. And why don't they? Is it because that they forgot? No, it is not that kind of ADHD. It is that they're like, oh, I just was not interested in joining in this stuff. Well, why didn't you say something before? We could at least have discussed it, and we could have discussed an alternative for those who don't want to wear ugly Christmas sweaters. Like, you could just wear green or red that day or something so that everybody's still, because we're going to take a company picture. And they're like, I don't want to do anything. There's the problem. That's dysfunctional because in a company, you do need to work as a team. So if the team wants to do something silly or something at least, a little different, and everybody agrees it's fine, not sharing during the discussion portion of the planning event, not putting that in is the dysfunctional part. And it's something that really stood out about neurodivergent people is that not everybody has been socialized well enough to understand of you need to participate in these conversations as part of being a team member. And once you explain that to a neurodivergent person, often you hear it, oh, I didn't realize this was part of team stuff. No, they were just being dumb together. Like, it's both. They're being dumb together. is part of team building. Sometimes we like all be silly together as a team. Nobody is silly on their own. And so you can all be silly together, kind of get it out of your system and everything. This is, but sometimes neurodivergent people, nobody ever takes them aside to explain when the group is trying to do something. You don't want to do that. You need to say something during development of saying, like, I'm not really into this. I really am not comfortable wearing a big Christmas sweater. Maybe they don't celebrate Christmas, or they have some like whole kind of trauma triggering past about it, and they're like, I really don't want to participate in this.
Like so many people now.
So much trauma, so many people. So group, it's period, it's a functional group that says, oh, we absolutely understand and we don't want you to feel traumatized. Why don't you just wear something red or that day so you won't stand out in the and it's like, cool, that works fine. Versus not even just participating in the discussion. Like, again, team building is team building. You need to be part of the team. And so it is possible to inadvertently paint your villain with a lot of dog whistles for neurodivergency. You are not trying to say that him being neurodivergent is the villainous part. Something you're consciously aware of, whether you yourself consider you neurodivergent or not. And I just want to point out that there is a surprising number of diagnoses that put people under the neurodivergent umbrella, including bipolar disorder, epilepsy, autism, ADHD, help me out, dyslexia,
Tourette's.
Tourette's.
I mean, anything essentially that they knew from a baby that you were
Right.
you had a problem. There's a neurology problem.
As when I was sick, I was diagnosed with clumsy child syndrome. So that now it is no longer called clumsy child syndrome, although truly, it definitely is called. That's folded into. I can't remember autism now. Can't remember what it's folded into. You can look it up later. I always thought the name was hilarious. Clumsy child syndrome. You know it when you see it. But because it's a developmental disorder, all of that is neurodivergent more. It's actually a surprising amount more. So something to be aware of, since we are talking about toxic women, of, in particular, a collective experience about everybody conforming, or at least being aware of conforming. So that the positive part of the female collective is
Yes.
wait, but like pulling someone aside to say, hey, you have spinach in your teeth, or your fake eyelashes sort of blinking at other people on the side of your head now, or whatever, or like you've got a spot on your shirt, and I had stuff that should be able to get it out real quick. Yeah, a little tie pin or whatever, the various different brands, different industries. It's the same thing.
I have tried cleaner.
Yeah, it's essentially. And so like that is the positive side of the female collective is, hey, you've got something on your shirt, or you're dragging toilet paper on your shoe. Here, let me help you.
Your hem's fallen.
Yes, and here I have a stapler.
How many times?
Never underestimate the value of a stapler to fix a headline. So,
Oh, it's truly it's beside the point, but just how to tell if how Soviets could tell if the passport was fake
oh, the staples.
because they didn't have stainless steel staples,
Oh, they were galvanized, but yeah.
and so it would always rust on the paper. Versus Americans always had stainless steel staples, so it doesn't rust. And I was just thinking like how to tell where your where your where your hemline was repaired. Is there rust on your clothing?
Never underestimate what I can do with a stapler to immediately fix an off outfit. I am like
But yeah, the female collective's job is to look out for each other.
Yeah, and to like point out, hey, today in that meeting, so was giving you all sorts of weird looks. What's going on? And you're like, I don't know. Then they're like, well, I will go investigate. I will report back to you. Like that's where the female collective is very useful and supportive, is to support you in succeeding at your endeavors.
And like knowing which of the men are creeps in the business, which ones are fine. Also
Which
pointing out,
one's never take an elevator with? Never.
and the same goes also for with the women up top of who are the ones that are going to help you and who are the ones that will get you fired.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's lots of good uses for the female collective, and please understand, I'm not trying to say the female collective is inherently bad. It's just there can be toxicity and something that I've definitely hit both sides of unknowingly because I was neurodivergent. I just didn't see it coming. Women are more likely to pay attention to details and might know you forever and only notice something after years. You never had earrings? I have heard this too many times. You mean like pierced ears? Or like earrings, period? That's pierced ears. I have earrings. Wonderful, very comfortable. And I got screwbacks and everything, and I inherited some from my grandmothers and all of that because they did not have pierced ears either. It's actually recommended against to get pierced ears to get fillers. My father was my mother having my ears pierced as a child. I'm rather glad he won out because the Ehlers Danlos. Yeah, no piercings, exactly. I have wonderful earrings. There's just none of them are for. People give me pierced earrings. See, because I wear earrings a lot in real life, and they don't realize none of them are pierced. Don't need to notice things.
Well, it does help though that or you get me to adjust them so they will fit correctly.
I have a key.
Yeah, like it does help to have an earring key to know how to adjust them.
Mm-hmm.
Because clip-on earrings shouldn't hurt, but they should also be fairly secure.
Mm-hmm. So that is what keep in mind when you're building your villainous characters, is to also make sure or try to make sure that you're not seeing them as neurodivergent and that that's the source of their villainy. They can be neurodivergent and be a villain, but I would caution everyone to avoid making their neurodivergency the source of their villainy. The toxicity, you can be neurodivergent and be toxic, but it's not the neurodivergence that makes you toxic. Not necessarily noticing, what everyone else is doing. So you'll see it actually in neurodivergent children. Has anyone ever played this game? There you go. Everybody else do it? I know there's a few of you in chat. Hope you did it. So in a classroom, if you do, and you watch the clock, usually within 3 minutes, all children except some children will put their finger on their nose without you ever saying anything, without them ever having seen this game before. You can also play it other ways, like this. You'll just keep walking around, giving your lesson. And they'll all then do it, right? But some children won't. And it's because either they have ADHD or they're neurodivergent and their mirror cells are not firing enough for them to notice or realize, oh, wait, I should be, everyone else in the room is doing it. I should do it too, whatever that means. Teenagers should do it, but that's for very different reasons. They're so concerned about being publicly shamed because something happens when puberty hits. It affects the brain. What is it? They all think they have personal autism. That everyone, everywhere in the world can see them all the time, even when there's no one else in the room. And this was even before cameras. Just nobody. So there's hormones are wild, y'all. And something that happens to teenagers, and it doesn't really go away entirely for most teens until they're like somewhere between 23 and 27 years old, for real. So you can get teenagers to really do this most of the time, but you can get like elementary school children. And so the ones and like we literally in public school, at least in Mississippi, once a year, usually a couple months to the school year, we were supposed to evaluate all our students for possibly needing ADHD screening. And if you went to my university, which at the time was number 3 in the world for best teaching school, or what it's actually called as a normal school. I know it sounds weird, but a normal college is a teaching college. It's a college to make teachers, to, educate people into becoming good teachers. And that was how I was taught to do your initial is do this while you're teaching a regular classroom, just walking around, making eye contact as you would normally, and give them 3 minutes. 3 minutes, so you just keep doing this. See who puts their finger on their nose. Anybody who doesn't note of it, and then evaluate them. That's your first evaluation. Then the ones who don't do it, it's your second evaluation. You pull them aside and actually do a proper evaluation for ADHD to see if you need to go to a professional to be evaluated for ADHD. La la la. There's so much here in neurodivergency.
I just finally go look it up. I swear there's a third one, but did finally find out the what do you get during puberty? Is you have personal audience and you have personal fable that we all develop at that age. I swear that there was a third one.
You want to describe personal fable? I've just described personal audience.
Um, Personal fable is that why teenagers love those heroes' journey stories. That we are the hero of our own story. We have destiny. We are destined to be something greater. We just have to follow a path to get there. That is, we create a fable of our own life. All teachers have this. You
I mean
especially
teenagers.
teenagers. Yeah, sorry, they say teachers.
That's what I heard.
Teenagers.
And I was, excuse me, sir, you're not wrong, but you're not necessarily right.
Yes, true. Especially those first few years.
Save us from the missionaries.
But that personal fable of what is my purpose, and so you go with the stories you've learned, and that's where you just you will see teenagers get very over overly serious, overly excited. My life is over statements, especially about their hobbies and their socializing, because this is part of their personal fable. They will achieve their journey, becoming the hero by doing these behaviors. And if they are kept from doing these behaviors, you are stopping them from becoming the hero of their own story.
I swear to you, some people don't outgrow that.
Yeah, just like some people do not outgrow personal audience either.
And I will admit, as a teenager, I definitely had the personal audience problem. And gosh, I was like, what, 29, 31 when I finally, my brain stopped doing the personal audience problem. It was really 33 before it was entirely over. 33. The idea of neurodivergence took my brain so much longer. Also, the personal audience thing did not begin though either until I was like 16 or 17. I think it was 17 when it really was going full force. So I think it started
Versus, versus neurotypical children, it kicks in
usually around 12 or 13.
and it maxes at 15, and it actually starts disappearing at 18.
It was very painful for me. And in fact, it's something like Tom had to counsel me on. Yes, my younger brother had to counsel me on of no, this is in your head. It is not accurate. And I'm like, feels so accurate. He's like, there is no glory TV show where we're all watching it after hours to see your day. I'm like, promise me. I remember that going, promise me again. I think I was like 24 at the time, and you were 21.
If you ever, if anyone watching this ever wants to look up and understand better, just type in puberty and Elkind, Elkind, who is the one who did the study, to better understand these effects. So why teenagers are all overly dramatic, they can't help it. It is just part of all those hormones, and it's part of that brain development, and just it's part of growth.
Yeah.
It's a rough time.
I remember I was 15. I very dramatically asked my mother in the car, is poverty inheritable? Because I'm never going to get out of this. She's like, no, it is not. What the hell? I kind of disagree with her. Anyway, my mother grew up middle class and did not recognize her own privilege. But I was just so dramatic because I was so sure that I was never going to get my life off the ground. I was never going to get to do anything I wanted to do because I was 15 and still hadn't gotten it started. 15. I was so impatient for my life to start.
And if you ever want to see a case in point of personal fable that never ends, just watch the movie Big Fish. That is personal fable. He only discusses his life through story and through fable. I mean, it turns out that it does, for the most part, happen, but the way he describes it is in a story, in a fable, not just the facts of the events.
Mm-hmm.
And you again hear all of that, destiny.
I was destined to be at this town, but I arrived too early. They're like, you're on the list, but you're here far too early. Oh well, I'm here now.
Oh, that was the third one. I finally found it. Invincibility fable. Again, why teenagers use the thing they're too dangerous.
Because they don't realize that it's mortal. Do not lay in the road to plank. But like I know I had it I see where other people are like some of my stories of like, yeah, Greg, I can't believe you live. Like that time where I woke up and a mountain lion was sniffing my feet in my sleeping bag. And I didn't have my glasses on, but I could very well tell it was a big cat. And I was like, oh, you're up. And it pulled my feet, went, and I said, I have no food for you. And it just walked off a little bit offended that I had no food at 6:30 in the morning as the fell. And other people, when I tell that story, are like, I can't believe that you lived. And I'm like, you want to go camping with me? Don't worry about it. And they're like, I especially do not want to go camping. But what am I supposed to do? Should I panic? Seems it would only make the cat more upset. Also, I just put my glasses on and walked away. And it was a beautiful female cougar. Oh my God, it was gorgeous, y'all. I'm glad I didn't have my glasses on, or I would have tried to pet it. It was just beautiful. Like its fur was just so and short. It was gorgeous. So, I'm glad I didn't have the TV.
So I included a link to a really good. I think it's a college book, like it's a college textbook, and you can just read the entire chapter on puberty and cognition.
Yes.
I think especially for those wanting to write middle grade and young adults, it's good to study up on why people act that way and some expectations that are reasonable. Like as you get older, it's easy to kind of forget what was the thought process that caused this? For even you to act the way you did as a teenager. So I think it's some good reading, especially for those of our friends who are writing for younger characters.
Hmm.
And it's also the why um, that personal fable and personal audience um, is also why it's easier to illustrate and create toxic femininity characters because there is that want to join the group. There's that want to belong and to go with whatever the strongest personality is saying, versus having an internal moral code that says this is the kind of people I want to be around, and this is the society I want to help create. You know, teenagers need to start trying to find how do they join in and become part of any group. So they're very easily led, as we saw in Mean Girls, of the other characters were not actually that toxic because they were part of this group. And once they are not part with that type of toxic leadership, they revert to being more of who they want to be internally, which doesn't have those, toxic behaviors.
Right. Wieners. Poor Gretchen. So instead of talking about Kill Bill next, let's talk about Sucker Punch because again we're still talking about. Oh, okay.
So like there should be a little drum roll as Glory develops her steam for the rant.
You're embarrassed.
I mean, I understand because I too am just like, what is this BS? But I mean, that is just this director. Every story this director tells is this kind of BS.
That's Sucker Punch. The trauma.
I mean, same problem I have with his version of Superman.
Yeah.
Of this toxic gender roles. Sucker Punch is toxic femininity. Superman, we see toxic masculinity.
So my issue with Sucker Punch, toxicity in it, and oh, there's some serious villains like all the orderlies and everything. Like like everybody who works at this place is a bad guy.
Yeah.
Question. Just had that up.
Oh.
You just not look at the screen. It looks like you're looking at the screen. Okay. So we accept who the villains are. And then we have this girl, this patient fighting in her own head, possibly fighting in reality. My issue with Sucker Punch, more than anything, is the fact that at the end, she does not try to save herself. She does not try to really even protect herself. She accepts that she is a victim. That is the subject of my entire rant. Of this is toxic femininity. Of I cannot save myself, someone else must save me. But I can save other people, can save other patients. She puts another patient on the bus, but she will get on the bus herself. Excuse me, what the hell? When she very clearly, it wasn't like the bus was full. Even if it had, I don't know, just sit on each other's lap, whatever. Like, that is where it is toxic femininity. Is again back to the damsel in distress. I am in distress. I am but a poor little old victim. I cannot save myself. And no one is coming to save me. So, oop, I'm going to be raped forever. Sorry. I know that some people don't like that word, and I try not to say it. But that is exactly what is happening. It glamorizes sexual assault.
There's
I'm heisting a patient, but I'm not going to ever.
Because the problem with it is,
If you could save someone else, you could not save yourself.
yes, and there are other stories where, yes, the group ends up dying to save one.
Yes, that is not an unusual, like, it is a trope in human stories. It is absolutely a trope.
But we, in no way, ever in this movie or in story, establish why everyone else needs to die to save this one, and that somehow saving this one will promote everyone in this group's ideas to keep going.
Like, they don't even say we all sacrifice ourselves so that you will survive and tell our stories for us, which is a real thing that happened in the Holocaust multiple times at multiple concentration camps, where all the older people would pile on the teenagers or the early 20 somethings to protect them from the gas, hope that they would survive, saying you have to fake your own death, you have to pretend to be dead until you can get out of here, and then you run like the wind. You never look back. You don't worry about it. But you have to survive as you do all of us.
Here's all the rations you have. You are going to be.
But that's not what happens in Sucker Punch. That is exactly not what happens. More than one could have survived. They chose to just stay there and be victimized. It wasn't a we're staying behind to destroy every penis in this building. And then when we're done destroying penises, we shall then destroy anyone else who remains.
And the building.
And the building, and it will never be able to house another soul. That is our plan. You go on, though. You are an innocent, and we want you to survive and live your life and tell our story for us. And now we are going back to the building to destroy everybody. That is not what happened. That would have been cool as hell. We would have. I would not be mad about that. I mean, it would have been like, hey, really? The only one? But instead, like, it's like if they said, no, I really don't want to survive. I survive and destroy everybody in this building. Cool, cool. But if I don't, I will be totally satisfied. But I mean, and well, again, that's a little bit toxic. Revenge is power. I kind of get it. Kind of get it.
Also, where some people don't want to happen to them because they know they're broken. They don't know how they would exist after all the trauma they've dealt with. And so all they want to do is make sure no one else is ever traumatized in this way ever again.
Right.
But they don't want to exist in the world anymore after this. But like we've seen that kind of revenge type personality. But again, that's not what we saw.
Right.
In this story. We saw this toxic level of femininity and mothering of, oh, but we must look out for the young one. We are all, old to go on.
We're too damaged. We're dirty by all, like, no. That's not how survival works. And what's more, it's not even accurate about human beings. That is not how the majority of human beings feel, even those who are mentally ill. That's not it. Like, the desire to survive is very strong in humans. So,
they have to be very sick to begin with to not have much survival.
which is something we know humans do. But again, none of that is discussed in the film. Therein lies the problem. Is all of these characters are also treated as two-dimensional caricatures of what it is to be a woman or what it is to be a young female. And they are not treated as three-dimensional characters with their own hopes and dreams and motivations and, misbeliefs, things that are wrong. Like, we don't find out that they have, internalized ableism or they have internalized misogyny, such as, well, you've already been sexually assaulted, so no one else in society will ever want you. They don't discuss this in a way that is like a human conversation. There are mentions of concerns about this, but not enough to actually have a real conversation. And what's more, I mean, does this movie even pass the Bechdel test? I'm not actually sure it does. Which helps us because guess what? Women, when it's just women, do not strictly talk about men. Women talk about all sorts of things, everything from what they ate that day, what they want to eat tomorrow, to the weather, you name it, memories, anything. Fantasy stories, you never know. Harry says humans don't just give up after so much effort, but they also don't just let their friends go after they get away. I will drag you. Exactly. And I say that having literally dragged friends out of clubs. Also, having dragged friends literally away from arguments with people of like, please, I don't want to go to jail. I also you out, so you have to come with me now. Goodbye. So yeah, those are my issues with Sucker Punch. Is again, Sucker Punch only exists in a world where all the women are toxic and they have toxic beliefs. I can honestly tell you, as a woman who has been sexually assaulted many times, both in my childhood and to a lesser degree in my adulthood, and who has gone to a lot of therapy as well as a lot of group therapy, decade of group therapy. I am here to tell you that the vast majority of other people who identify as women who show up to these kind of therapies and other events do not believe that their sexual assault makes them unable to exist in society. They're mad about their sexual assault often. They're upset that it makes them feel dirty or broken, but they blame the assaulter, not themselves, for those feelings. I just want to point out I am talking about people who have other diagnosed mental illnesses that run the gamut of everything. You know, ableism warns people about mental illness. You know, everything from schizophrenia to depression and bipolar disorder and everything in between. You name it, met people. So people with like serious addictions who, you know, maybe are court ordered to attend our support group meetings. And I'm here to tell you, hardly anybody from any culture walks into these, at least in South Mississippi, and goes, I am not fit for society anymore because I have been sullied by sexual assault. It's always that. It's always that. And they may feel broken, but not so broken that they're unfit for society. Or if they feel like they question how they can operate in society, they still very squarely blame their assaulter for even making them think that.
And sometimes, and they also
It's also their parents.
and society a bit of
Yeah,
allowing that situation and that assaulter to exist in it.
right. But it's never, oh, I can't get on the bus with you to, freedom. Never done that. I've never experienced that. In like the hundreds of women that have gone through that support group while I was attending it, never once. There were women who would attend because I live in a university town, not one but two different universities, and both universities have a lot of international students, like a lot, hundreds. So the support group I was attending was free, so you know there were a lot of people, and they tried to limit the size of the support. This did not work because essentially once you get into the support group, you could come back anytime you wanted, they met. But most people didn't attend most of the time. But every once in a while, the support group was standing room only. Every once in a while, they're like, well, we are really maxing out 20 people in this room right now. Let's just hope we don't get anyone else because I definitely don't want to turn anyone away. And then like people are then having to discuss, well, who wants to leave early if someone else comes? And honestly, like sometimes it was like 2 or 3 people are like, yeah, just came because I kind of like had an opening, not because I really needed to be here today. So yeah, I have been where it has been standing room only in my support group meeting, and nevertheless, nobody was like, ah, a woman cannot function in society because I have been sullied by male body parts. Not once. And as I said, those were included international students, international grad students. Not even other people from other countries were thinking that. Not from anywhere around the globe. And you think, well, Glory, Holland was only getting people from like Europe and maybe Japan. No, baby doll. No. We got people from country in Africa, every country in Asia, every country in the Eastern Bloc. It was kind of cool. But the reason we get people from all over the planet at my 2 universities here in town in South Mississippi is because the tuition is super cheap, apparently. And yet, both universities are highly accredited in all their fields. So that's cool. So it's really like a very good value. I mean, I question some people, like, pretty sure at one point I went to college with someone who was a cousin to, oh, what is that Serbian war criminal? Milosevic? Yeah, I'm pretty sure I went to school with like one of his nieces, our cousin. Pretty when she was talking about her uncle, I'm like, I think that was him. That was right before he got indicted. Uh, so anyway, like, yeah, we got everybody from all over the planet, and not once did anybody go back not operate. So again, this is not even a common kind of toxic femininity. This is that guy, that sexist, misogynist, blankety blank, and his idea of real women don't save themselves because that's unfeminine.
Like we saw in 300.
What, real men die?
Oh no, you talked to someone who likes 300.
I couldn't get through the movie. I highly recommend the Weather Girls 300 video mashup, but because I honestly think that's the best version of 300 ever.
The women also are very toxic. The way they talk to the men, but like just they help make the men even more toxic in the movie.
Oh, because I was like, what do they go up pay hot stuff? Because that's
No,
what I'd
no.
say.
If you don't come back, with your shield.
Oh, come on, your shield. Like, yeah,
they rephrased it a little bit for the essentially, I will kill you personally if you get out or anything.
Oh my god, that's so weird. And what?
Yeah, like they're literally talking about literally emasculating. Like, no, the women are also pretty. I don't think he knows how to write anything that's not toxic.
Is that 300 going to end up on next week's list?
I don't want to think about it.
Because you don't want to watch it.
Yeah. I mean, 300 is easier to watch if that kind of type of male body is in your aesthetic. But without that, it's rough. It's rough to watch. Yeah, they're all toxic.
Yeah, I don't like how they're so oiled. They look dirty.
Yeah.
It's like I may have in my youth oiled a man with olive oil and then scraped it off to see, well, what does it look like? And it didn't look that oily.
Oh no, they had so much glycerin on them.
Yeah. Like when you oil a human being to clean them, they look clean afterwards. They don't look greasy.
Yeah.
Just saying. Also, don't oil someone with extra virgin. the little bits of olive will get stuck in the pores, and it's gross, and also they will break.
Yeah.
But not the hard oil does swimmer, not Commodite. This is up in Canada. The things I did in Canada.
A long list of someday Gloria will write stories of.
My time in Canada, my short time in Canada, where I got up to a lot of height. Okay.
So what else was there to talk about?
There's Kill Bill 1 and 2, volumes 1 and 2, and we didn't get to watch Mother Knows Best because we didn't get a copy in time.
I mean, most people are familiar with it. And I mean, the revenge part already makes it toxic. I mean, Kill Bill reminds me of one of the biggest problems I see that really philosophy hasn't addressed yet, but shows up constantly, is how do how do humans overthrow their oppressors without just repeating the behaviors of their oppressor, um, and just repeating the cycle over and over of the whole we created um, nobility as the people in charge, and then we got rid of them, and then we just created capitalism for having the exact same situation repeat. But Kill Bill definitely shows she just becomes like her oppressors. She becomes just like the person who taught her kung fu or whatever martial arts it was, and she becomes just like the people she hung around in this toxic behavior. Um, versus, look, no one else has watched it, but I don't want it was versus the black mom is actually does become a decent mom. Like she, is thinking about her kids.
Well, she wasn't. That's the problem. And that's how she got killed. Because originally they agreed not to do this to the death while the little girl was in the house. And then that mom actually then still like they agreed to go meet at the park at like night or something. And then mom still attacks, remember, through the cereal.
Oh,
through the cereal box.
That's right.
So no, she wasn't that good of a mom. Yeah, she really wasn't thinking about her child's welfare. Like,
She was just using her child as a.
yeah, that is actually why I have it on the list. Not like, okay, first off, revenge for the sake of revenge is toxic. Period. Not necessarily toxically feminine or toxically masculine. It's just toxic. It's not that if you're concerned that people will come after you and so you're never safe, that is not revenge. But if you are really wanting revenge and you're making violence for that sake, that is what is toxic. So to differentiate, there's like, so like what is toxic is a Bill and all of his other friends attacking the bride because she didn't want to keep doing their assassination heists. That's toxic. And Bill did not convince the rest of his team to do it against their better judgment. They were all for it. Again, that's toxic. Was you can't leave me. You'll never survive. And like also, the bride was pregnant, which she was very obviously pregnant. There was absolutely no doubt she was pregnant. They chose not to wait till the bride wasn't pregnant. That is also like again to really show that there's nothing redeeming about this crowd. Those are some of the reasons why I did include the Kill Bill volumes 1 and 2 on the list is because of these toxic behaviors. And again, using your quote feminine wiles and other cringy every time I have to say feminine. You would not believe how much trash I've read in my life. it uses this phrase. How much Victorian trash I have read. How much romantic Harlequin silhouette Avon trash I've read. It's a lot of trash. But these are the reasons why it's so toxic. These characters are using aspects of their femininity that are dysfunctional, both to them as well as to society in general. Um, they are not able to fully function in society. And partly because they're weaponizing aspects of their femininity. And that is not function. I mean, we really see how like Bill knows what is honorable. Like if you tried to kill someone and they did not kill them, but they needed to be healed, the honorable thing to do is you heal them up, then you attack them again. Coward sends someone to kill them while they're at their most vulnerable. And a coward agrees to do that. That is cowardly behavior. That is not honorable. This is not a blood war or anything like no, no, no. These people.
Let's say throughout you see how manipulative all these characters are. That they they definitely know they still have morality. They just choose to not go with it.
And also none of the other characters in the gang, while the gang sort of disbanded after that, none of the other characters also tried to protect the bride till she was well enough to then fight proper, knowing, look, she ain't dead. It's your job. I mean, like, remember I made this point about Superman. Lex Luthor. Lex Luthor would have never. Superman died. The doctor's like, you know what Superman needs? Kryptonite IV infusion. Lex Luthor be like, no, no, I'm taking over. You will kill him. You doctors are such idiots. I am taking over Superman's Clark himself and like getting him off a kryptonite IV because Lex Luthor would have never allowed Superman to die by reason of like bad medicine. He would be like, no, I'm going to heal Superman, and even if I have to go take him to this stupid little cave, and I will get him healed, and we will have a proper fight. Because Lex Luthor was a really good like opponent.
Like you actually see this. I can't remember the universe, but there's one where Superman died and Lex Luthor took over being Superman.
This has got to be the Jewish thing ever.
Because he was so upset. Superman died. It's like, well, I can't really,
So that's actually like that's like it's like part of is if you cause the death of a good person, you have to then not only you are responsible for doing all the mitzvahs, the commandments that you yourself are obligated to do, but now you are also responsible of making up for all the mitzvahs that that good person could not complete in their lifetime because you were the cause of the death. It was not a natural death. And so that means you have to be double good. And that is like gotta be the most Jewish storyline ever. But that is kind of my point of when you're an honorable person, you do not attack someone when they are at their most weakest, vulnerable, when they are not capable of protecting themselves. You help them get better, you heal them up, and then when they are ready to fight, that so you do see this in The Princess Bride. Well, yes, also written by Jews. So William Goldman, where we see this with when Wesley, when the Dread Pirate Roberts is climbing up the cliff, and Inigo Montoya is waiting for him at the top, but he's tired of waiting. He's supposed to fight him. Like, and he's like, I realize this may not look difficult, but I'm doing my best. This is what my Lord wrote. He's like, sure. He's like, well, I don't think you take it. Oh, really? Why? Now that you've like offered help. Because I'm just waiting to kill you up here. That does put a dampener in our relationship. Why? What if I gave you my word as a Spaniard? I've two Spaniards. That'd be the best backhand insult ever. I love it. I love it. Like, okay, what if I swear on the soul of my father, you will reach the top alive? Bro, and then Inigo waits for the man in black to catch his breath because Nico is a man of honor. He doesn't want to defeat somebody when they are, incapacitated. They are not at their full ability. So we'll just wait. I'll tell you a little story in case you happen to have seen. I mean, like, but okay, tell me your story while I catch my breath. That is what an honorable person does. So, like, that is again, that is where like we see this in the comic books. Superman was started by two Jewish dudes. And, like, let me be perfectly honest, don't think for a minute Stanley and Jack Kirby are not Jewish, or all the other guys in comic book land, at least what, through the 60s? I don't remember when they started hiring Gentiles for DC and Marvel. I thought it was like the late 70s, but I could be wrong on that. Quote me. But like all of these Jewish ideas of what makes a good person and what makes a bad person are baked into comics. And we do see that throughout. And that's why I bring that up of like, that's going to be the most Jewish storyline of Lex Luthor taking over for Superman when Superman dies prematurely, is because that is like a very Jewish cultural thing of you have to then, if you cause the inadvertent death of a good person, you then are responsible for the good deeds of not one, but two people because you've robbed the world of the goodness it's entitled to. So that is the opposite of toxic that nobody asked for.
All over of that toxic is just detrimental. It's detrimental also not just to the person but to everyone around them.
Mm-hmm. Dishonorable people are dishonorable in all aspects of their life. It's part of who they are. It's very unlikely to be a switch they turn off and on unless they also exhibit dissociative behaviors.
And John Waters did get that part right. We see in serial long of she hides this part of herself, but it is part of her. Like,
Do you love the sort of salaciousness of her true crime obsession? That she's obsessed with these true crime stories, and especially now, like this story would have to be rewritten because everybody, you, what is it? Is the stats? Are you a woman between the ages of 20 and 45? Then statistically speaking, more than likely you are like you have at least what is it, like at least 3 true crime documentaries or podcasts that are your favorites?
Yeah.
Something like that. Like, I feel like I'm not really interested in that anymore. Like, it used to be that I was a little bit fascinated because I have a video store. I had these two employees who one of them was getting a bachelor's degree in criminal justice and so had all these stories about famous criminals. And then the other employee was best friends with the employee who had trained criminal justice. And she was also obsessed with serial killers. Like all serial killers, but at the time she worked at the video store, she did go through what, like 18 months of John Wayne Gacy books. She was reading a book a week. I did not know at the time that there were that many books written about John Wayne Gacy. So here's what would happen. I would come in early for my shift, and she would be working the first shift. I tended to do night shift. I would come in like an hour early. Most employees only came in like 20 minutes before their shift to do the shift handover. We paid everybody to do this, like, but you didn't need to be there an hour early, but I tended to come in an hour early because there tended to be boss problems that I needed to fix. So I'd come in, and often though there wasn't that much more to do. So I would be sitting there with her going, "So, what is this week's book? Tell me all about it." What else are we gonna talk about while we wait for her you know. So yes, I did pay her to tell me the highlight reel of all these books that I'm I know so much about John Wayne Gacy. No, I know it. I know a lot. I know insane amount. So, like, they were just the 2 of them. That's honestly mostly what they talk about when they were together, these 2 coworkers. They would talk endlessly about, whatever serial killer that they've been reading about, they would read these books together and they discuss them in the business meeting, the video store that we'd have Sunday mornings.
Well, then they would reference because the one going criminal justice um, had like a giant textbook, and I mean that thing was huge on prison population studies
Oh, yes. I learned
and
so much about prison populations. I actually wrote essays about it.
and how prison populations um, related to serial killers and the kind of mindsets and where the overlap was versus where the true outlier behavior was, and like would they have been picked up in prison and noted for this behavior, or would they have gotten out and gone on to become the serial killers they were?
That was actually what we usually discussed, video store business meetings before breaking up the meeting. If it was like we had 20 minutes to make it to a solid hour, we just discuss the latest debate rather than and people not paid for the full hour. And since I was the one paying everybody, that's what we did. So, like, and I thought the one getting a job in criminal justice, I thought she raised some very salient. Her theory was many of the serial killers caught are not proper serial killers. It's more that they're just killing in the group that they hang out in a lot, which is really more like a murder of opportunity than a serial killer where they're really not able to deviate from a certain profile or from a certain style of murdering and um, disposing of body. I thought that she made some really salient points about that
Yeah, most serial killers are caught when they want to be caught.
when they're tired of it or they want someone to stop them because it's getting to be too hard. Also, I agreed with her about her theory that most serial killers are not caught because that they are of above average intelligence, but the ones who are caught are tend to register quite low on IQ tests, and that in fact those are not the majority of serial killers. Serial killers are actually better at hiding tracks, making deaths look natural, which we now are catching more of them because of cameras. So, like cameras in the hospitals, cameras in places where people make death look natural, cameras in assisted living homes, and so on. We have actually been catching more of essentially serial killers who make deaths look natural, but they are not actual.
And like the police know have statistics on how many serial killers are in the U.S. at least at any given time.
As well as how many serial killers are in their area.
Oh, they know. They don't really make it public much, but they do
Mhm.
know because serial killers prefer to kill in a very specific way, and it's hard to duplicate. People just don't naturally duplicate these things between each other. So they know. Usually the numbers go between 300 and 700 in the total continental U.S.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty steady.
So the ones they actually catch, who tend to be of average or lower than average IQ, are really tend to be more of serial killers who are not proper serial killers, just more like murderers of opportunity. They're just psychopaths. And that these opportunities come up because they circulate more among transient communities and other black market and underbelly communities. And it's just an opportunity. They see the opportunity, they impulsively take it. It's not really textbook serial killer. I was thinking about it since I was Sandman season. There's a breakfast cereal convention.
Yeah.
And I was reminded of so many business meetings in a store where that's how we'd end the meeting. It's just discussing that till the clock ran out. So everybody can get paid for a full hour or for their second hour.
Yeah.
They need money. Well, so that concludes today's discussion of toxic femininity. Thank you so much for coming. Thank you for watching or catching us on the rewatch. We really do appreciate it.
Guess what we're doing next week?
More of the same. It's toxic masculinity. You're gonna love it. Considering I would say the majority of writers seem to prefer male villains, you're gonna really love it. I know we're gonna talk about The Searchers. I think one of the most homaged movie in Hollywood history. We're going to talk about The Searchers. So definitely, if you've never seen it, I don't want to use the word recommend, but I would suggest you watch it once in your life.
Just
It has been suggested that we do a compare and contrast of the original Predator movie versus the new Prey movie. Also, Deliverance, Rapid Fire, and a movie called Runaway. I don't know which one this is. Oh, yeah. Okay, it's coming back. Okay. So we're going to talk about what makes like a character, a male character or a masculine character, toxic. I mean, spoiler, dysfunction. That's what makes it. When you see that your behavior or your belief systems are causing pain or destruction in your own life, in the life of others, and you refuse to adjust your approach, that's dysfunction. That's it. But we will parse it out. We will discuss these characters, what specifically about their masculine traits makes them toxic. Tom has a theory of what is it? Butch versus femme? Well, that you said masculinity versus femininity is different from butch versus soft.
Yeah,
Is it
soft.
butch? Is it butch versus soft? So I figured next week is probably a good time to discuss Tom's theory of butch versus soft versus masculine versus feminine. That butch is different from masculine, and that you can be a butch masculine person or a soft masculine person, still be masculine, still be toxic or positive function.
I mean, you want to see soft masculine? Almost any movie where Neil Patrick Harris has played actually any kind of negative character, that's usually a soft masculine character.
Cherry is singing.
Yeah. I'm doing my best too.
We could talk about Beauty and the Beast. We could definitely talk about Gaston and even Le Pew. Is it? What is his name? We could definitely.
Yeah, Gaston's definitely toxic masculinity walking.
Yes. But that is what we're going to discuss, and like how to construct those kind of characters if you are looking to make a villain. Or what if you're not trying to make a villain? What if you're just trying to make a masculine character with, quote, a little toxic thing lately? Like she's a 10, but, and then you list the toxic trait, he's a 10, but, he thinks Pikachu's too yellow. I don't know. It's some weird stuff. Like, no, that's not really toxic. It's
Yeah.
like a difference of opinion.
But yeah, I think
I guess it'd be like he's a 10, but he eats 6 dozen eggs a day. It's a lot.
so many chicken butts.
So like we'll parse it out. If you have questions, if you definitely want to cover something in particular, be sure to let us know.
And we will probably be doing since this is the second part of the toxic gender roles, but probably doing a little more compare and contrast as we go along, including how society rewards these toxic behaviors. Gaston acts this way in part because his village rewards him for being this.
And if anything, actually encourages him to be this way. He's a even in the cartoon, there are a few hints that he himself feels a little trapped in this role.
Yeah.
And so
he wants to leave.
Yeah. He's not that happy. He certainly doesn't feel that fulfilled. But he doesn't want to leave alone. And Le Pew is not that interested in leaving. And that's the problem for him. So there's definitely some ways to help construct your characters and to parse this out. So that's what we're going to do next week. I hope you'll come. Or at the very least, be sure to subscribe, click the like button, do the sharey thing, the commenty thing, whatever you've got, because YouTube rewards engagement. After the show, we'll be hanging out in Discord Clubhouse and the Unicorn Council Discord server. If you're not already a part of the Discord server, there may be a link down below in my info. Go look. It works for the first 25 invites. So give it a try. And if you can't get in, let me know so I can run it. So anyhow, I'm going to wave you all off. See you later, whatever that is. Bye-bye.